After re-watching a bunch of Spider-Man movies and watching a bunch of them for the first time ever, I'm about to give you my ranking of all 8 Spider-Man movies. Welcome back to my channel, everybody. I'm Movie Micah. Welcome back to another ranking. This Spider-Man ranking will include the original Spider-Man Raimi trilogy. It will include both Amazing Spider-Man films, both MCU Spider-Man films, and Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse. Go ahead and tell me your ranking in the comments down below. You can include Venom if you want, but this is just my ranking, and let's head into it. Before we get started, I'm warning you right now, beware, this is the most controversial Spider-Man list you'll ever see, so just be prepared. So, coming in at number 8, starting off the list, is The Amazing Spider-Man. We just got done with the Spider-Man trilogy. This is the reboot that nobody needed. The Amazing Spider-Man films never needed to happen. Some people love them, but both, I'm telling you right now, they're low on my list. What I really dislike about this movie is the Lizard. Lizard is such a horrible, cheesy villain in my opinion. He's just a way more cheesy and worse version of Green Goblin from the original Spider-Man. Lizard is my least favorite villain on this entire list. I do think the acting is better in this film than the entire Raimi trilogy. Andrew Garfield is a much better actor than Tobey Maguire, but Garfield just doesn't work as Peter Parker. Overall, The Amazing Spider-Man kind of does all the things that Spider-Man did, but just a little bit weaker. Continuing this list at number 7 is going to be The Amazing Spider-Man II. This movie is not as bad as people say. Plenty of people would say that this film is too overcrowded with plot lines, and I actually didn't really feel that, but it did seem to set up a bunch of things that never even happened. Both villains definitely could have been more developed, but they just turned out to be okay. I actually found this film to be pretty entertaining and better than the previous one. Honestly, the only big problem with this film is that it sets up too many things that never happened. But this movie actually sort of made me want a Sinister Six movie. I am kind of glad that this series of Spider-Man movies ended, though. Getting my number 6 spot is a very controversial opinion, Spider-Man 2. You can hate me for this. You can hit the dislike button. Please hit the dislike button if it will help you. For me, this is the most forgettable Spider-Man film out of them all. The only memorable thing is the train stopping sequence. Everything else is forgettable. I just don't quite understand what's so special about this film. One good quality of this movie is that Doc Ock is a pretty great villain, and I really like the redemption he gets in the final battle. So many of you love this movie, but for me, it's so stupid when he loses his powers just because of psychological reasons. It does not work for me at all, and it drags me out of the film. This is still a good Spider-Man movie, but not very memorable for me at all. Taking my number 5 spot on the ranking is the original Spider-Man. This is a good introduction to Spider-Man, and I think Green Goblin is a pretty good villain. This was a really good starting point to the film world of Spider-Man, but to me it's pretty obvious there have been better ones ever since. One thing that I was really bothered by was actually Tobey Maguire's performance. I actually don't think he's a very good actor, and especially in this film, he does not give a good performance. I don't expect anything else, but the special effects are a little weird nowadays. There actually are some pretty good elements to this film, and it is a good movie overall, but the real biggest reason that Spider-Man isn't in the top half of the ranking for me, it's because I don't have any nostalgia for it. Many people do, and they will always love this film, but it's not the same for me. There are a lot of good Spider-Man movies, so this is where the original lands on the list. My number 4 is going to be Spider-Man Homecoming. A huge positive is the Vulture, because he is an amazing villain. I gotta say, Vulture is the best villain on this entire list, because he's just a bit relatable. Then, Tom Holland is easily my favorite Spider-Man. So basically, this movie has the best villain and the best Spider-Man, so why isn't it number 1? Homecoming is a fantastic superhero film and MCU film overall, but as a Spider-Man movie, he relies too much on Iron Man tech. Spider-Man should be good enough without the tech, so that's why, as a Spider-Man film, it is a little bit lower. I'm so glad that they didn't go back to Uncle Ben again and all that same stuff, but the things they replaced with it makes it feel less like a Spider-Man movie. It's great for the MCU, but not so much for Spider-Man. I really like most parts of this film, even though I just mentioned a bunch of negatives. Into my top 3, it's going to be Spider-Man 3. Yes, this is my favorite movie in the Raimi trilogy. Yet another reason to hit the dislike button. In my opinion, all 3 villains were pretty good, but Harry was just spectacular. I can agree that Venom didn't need to be there, but I still enjoyed him in the film. I have to mention that Peter trying to be cool is the worst segment in all of these movies. Otherwise, all the characters and development is great, and this film was just super entertaining. And then I have to point out that the final battle is absolutely phenomenal. Everything pays off so well in the final battle. There are some really stupid missteps that you can all point out, but there is enough greatness in this film for me to enjoy it, and it turns out to be one of my favorites. I really like the arcs of Sandman and Harry, and if they weren't mixed in with Venom, the villains of this film would be pretty much perfect, so I actually really do like Spider-Man 3. My runner-up Spider-Man movie is Spider-Man Far From Home. Far From Home has another great villain, Mysterio. Jake Gyllenhaal gives a great performance, and the reveal that Mysterio is a villain was really well done to me. Another fantastic part of this film is the visuals. That includes the illusion scenes and the action scenes. They're all amazing. The plot of this film is pretty interesting with the elementals and everything. With that said, the plot doesn't quite add up at some points, but everything else is absolutely amazing. They keep telling us that Tony would want Peter to have Edith, but they also keep showing us how irresponsible Peter is with them, so that's just a tiny little problem. It doesn't bother me during the watch, though, and most everything is really well done. Tom Holland is great again as Spider-Man, and this is my favorite live-action Spider-Man film of all time, which should give you an idea of what my number 1 is. Far From Home is great, and it made me excited for the next MCU Spider-Man film. Taking the top spot, number 1 is Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse. This film is super creative in every way. In my opinion, it's one of the best animated superhero films of all time, up there with The Incredibles. In my opinion, this is the single movie that feels the most like a comic book come to life. Like it just really feels like a comic book. And then every character is amazingly developed, and they're all given great arcs. Miles, Gwen, and Peter are all amazing, and even the villain Kingpin has a good backstory and arc. I absolutely love how they portrayed and executed all of these characters. All the moments with Miles and the Prowler make for some emotional moments. It's just so fun seeing all the different spider people, and I love any story about interdimensional travel. At the end of the day, visuals, plot, and characters are all amazing. For me, Into the Spider-Verse is basically a perfect film and super entertaining, and it turns out that the animated Spider-Man movie comes on top for me. So that was my ranking of all 8 Spider-Man movies. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to click that like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more movie rankings or movie content like this. Also, make sure you subscribe to Nolan Talks Movies because our collab will be released on his channel tomorrow. On that video, we both rank all 5 Pirates of the Caribbean movies. We both reveal our own ranking. Subscribe to his channel, you won't want to miss that. This is Movie Micah signing off. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.